I'm Daniel Wu, 34 small business owner. The last time I wore this blazer was the day I signed my lease when my dream finally had a storefront. Tonight, it felt tighter, stiffer, as if it remembered every failure I was trying to forget. The restaurant shimmered in soft golden light, sleek marble tables flickering with candle reflections, waiters in crisp black moving like shadows. My sister Olivia's voice rang from the center of the private room. Thank you all for coming to celebrate the launch of our tech startups Series A round, to family and the future. Everyone clapped, glasses raised. I hovered at the doorway. No one turned. I tried to step in quietly, hands damp in my pockets. I spotted the long family table Olivia, her husband Drew, our parents, Aunt May, Uncle John, even my old business school roommate Ethan. A waiter intercepted me. Sorry. Sir, this room is closed for a private event. I'm family, I said, forcing a polite smile. I'm Daniel Wu, Olivia's brother. He hesitated, glanced at the crowd, then leaned closer. They said to keep it limited. I can check with the host if you want. My jaw tightened. No, it's fine. I turned around slowly. Behind me, a couple was being seated at the bar. A pianist plinked delicate jazz near the front. I took a seat at the very edge of the main room, close enough to hear my mom laugh, close enough to hear Olivia say something about focus, drive, and not wasting time on silly dreams. My cheeks burned. My eyes locked on the water glass in front of me. If you've ever been through something like this, watching your own family toast without saving a chair for you, drop a comment or let me know where you're watching from. Hit like or subscribe if family drama ever made you feel invisible too. The server came by again, offering the menu. I waved it away. I wasn't staying. Just as I stood to leave, the door swung open. A tall man in a tailored navy coat stepped into the restaurant. Silver hair, European face, powerful stillness. He moved past the front desk with effortless authority. Excuse me. The hostess called. Do you have a reserve? He brushed past her gently. I'm here to see Mr. Wu. The hostess blinked. Sorry, do you mean the Wu family room in the back? He scanned the restaurant and walked directly to me. Daniel, he said, with the kind of nod that made every nearby table pause. You didn't tell me it would be such a modest gathering. Everyone turned, including Olivia, including my parents. The man smiled, extended a hand. Shall we sit? Or are we just here to shake things up? The waiter stumbled backward. Glasses stopped clinking. The room went quiet. All eyes were on me. And for the first time in a long time, so was the spotlight. He sat down across from me like he belonged there. Like I belonged there. My sister Olivia hadn't moved. Her wine glass hung frozen just an inch from her lips. My mother leaned in, whispering something to my father, her eyes darting between me and the man in the navy coat. He didn't notice, or maybe he did and simply didn't care. He waved the waiter over, not even looking at the menu. Bring us 2 glasses of Chateau Aubriand 1998. And some of those scallops I saw earlier? Yes. The waiter nodded, almost stammering. I looked at him, confused. You didn't have to do that. He smiled. Daniel, do you know how rare it is to find someone who's willing to fail with grace? I blinked. Most people don't think I did that with grace. He let out a short laugh. Yes. Well, most people lack imagination. That's why they clapped for your sister's speech and ignored you standing in the corner. I was too stunned to respond. The man sitting across from me was Leonard Brecht, co-founder of Vireo Partners, a private equity firm that backed several high-growth ventures in the last decade. Think global logistics, clean tech, Boutique artisan markets, anything that started small and refused to die. He was also my investor. Silent. Unlisted. A name I was asked to keep confidential until the right moment. And apparently, that moment was now. He raised his glass when it arrived. To failed businesses that don't stay failed. I tapped mine against his. "Why are you here?" I asked quietly. "You said the reveal would happen after the relaunch." He tilted his head. I changed my mind. In the background. Olivia stood. She was walking toward us now, her heels clicking slowly against the hardwood floor. Her smile painted on like she'd remembered it too late. "Daniel," she said, in that honey-slick tone she used when being watched. "You made it after all." I stood up. "Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be here." Her eyes flicked to Leonard. "And you brought someone." Leonard stood too. "Ms. Wu. I assume congratulations on the Series A. Very tidy." She faltered slightly. "Thank you. And you are?" He extended his hand. "Leonard Brecht. I'm Daniel's business partner. We're preparing something quite exciting, but I'll let him tell you the details when he's ready." Olivia's face twitched. Just a fraction. "Oh, I wasn't aware Dan was still pursuing that idea." "Most aren't," Leonard said, smiling. "That's how good ideas stay safe." She laughed. Politely. "Well, enjoy your evening." As she turned, I caught a glimpse of it, panic beneath her charm, questions behind her eyes, and just like that, I wasn't invisible anymore. 2 years earlier, none of this would have made sense. I'd quit my corporate job to open a small, sustainable textile shop, fabrics, home linens, handcrafted goods from regional artisans. The kind of place I thought people were craving: slow-made, honest, human. The launch was soft, but the response was warm. Locals loved it. I built a small online presence. Then came the storm: supply chain delays, sudden rent hikes, a leak in the ceiling, and finally, COVID. I tried to pivot. Online sales, pop-ups, partnerships, but I didn't have the capital. By the time I asked the family for help, the answer had already been decided. "It's not scalable," Olivia had said at Thanksgiving, as she scooped truffle mashed potatoes onto her plate. "Dan needs to think bigger." It's sweet, but he's not really a business mind. No one challenged her. Not even me. Leonard first appeared after I wrote an open letter on my blog, announcing the closure of my store. I'd poured everything into that piece: shame, hope, gratitude, and quiet anger. I wasn't begging for sympathy. I just didn't want to disappear without a trace. 3 days later, he emailed me. "I've seen failure dressed in many clothes." He wrote, "Yours wears honesty better than most." We met at a bookstore cafe. I thought he was just a kind stranger. Turned out, he'd been following my work since the second month of launch. He'd even bought a few pieces from my store under a different name. "I'm looking for founders who fall with elegance," he said, "and rise without noise." I thought it was a test. It wasn't. Within a month, we signed a quiet deal. I kept working behind the scenes, rethinking the supply chain, negotiating with new makers, designing a digital-first brand that honored my original ethos. All the while, my family thought I was licking wounds and updating my resume. I didn't correct them. Back in the restaurant, our food arrived. The scallops glistened like pearls on slate plates, steam curling upward as if whispering something luxurious. Leonard cut into his with surgical elegance. "You never told them about the investment." I shook my head. "Why would I? They already wrote the story. I just let them run with it." He smirked. "That's where we differ. I like surprises." We finished our meal in peace. Around us, I could feel the glances. Olivia was back at her table, but the energy had shifted. My dad kept peeking over, pretending to fix his napkin. As I stood to leave, Leonard placed a hand on my shoulder. "We have our next meeting Tuesday. You'll need to wear something sharper than this blazer." I grinned. "Noted." We walked past my family's table. I nodded politely. Only Olivia returned the gesture, her smile tight, unreadable. As I reached the door, Leonard turned. "Mr. Wu next time. I host dinner." The restaurant doors closed behind us, and the silence I'd known so long was finally replaced by something else. Something louder. Respect. Tuesday came with sunlight that didn't feel like judgment. I ironed my best shirt twice. It wasn't expensive, but it was clean. Crisp. I checked the buttons for phrase. Twice. Leonard had sent a car, a sleek black sedan with seats softer than any chair I'd ever owned. The driver didn't talk, just nodded and pulled into traffic like he was moving through silk. We arrived at a quiet glass building nestled between two loud banks in the city's old quarter. No signage, just polished stone and soft reflections. Inside, the air smelled like cedarwood and money. A receptionist in all black looked up. "Mr. Wu." I nodded. "Right this way. They're waiting." We moved through corridors that felt like art galleries. Every surface gleamed. When the double doors opened, I saw them: Leonard, two other investors, and a woman with silver blonde hair, tapping on a tablet. "Daniel," Leonard said, rising. "Meet Jana and Marcus, partners at Vireo. And that's Tamara, our brand system strategist. Today's just a soft brief." Soft. Sure. They didn't waste time. Marcus pulled up projected slides. "Your digital storefront is stunning. We think with the right rollout strategy, we can scale the subscription box model in under 10 months. Monthly textiles, rotating artisan partners, limited collections, ethical commerce as a luxury experience." Jana chimed in. "We're ready to launch beta in 2 cities. You'll be the face, but not the mouthpiece. We'll hire the right voice for that." Tamara looked up. "You don't strike me as a fake founder. People will trust you. That's rare. Don't lose it." I sat there, stunned. I hadn't even said a full sentence. They were talking as if I was already in. Because I was. They'd already read everything I'd written, pulled my analytics, studied my product evolution. They believed in it more than anyone I'd known. And they didn't care that I'd once cried in a delivery van because 5 bolts of linen got ruined by mold. Leonard leaned back. "The name stays?" I nodded. "Ordinary matter. It means beauty in the everyday." He smiled. "Then let's make it extraordinary." The following weeks were a blur. Calls, approvals, samples, new partnerships. I'd forgotten what it felt like to work and not be scared the floor would collapse. Every decision didn't feel like a gamble anymore. It felt like a stone placed carefully in a foundation. The only people who didn't know my family. They assumed I was freelancing, or healing, or flailing quietly. I showed up to Sunday dinners in neutral colors and said little. Dad asked once, "You still applying for roles?" "Son, still figuring things out." I said. Mom would bring me leftovers wrapped in foil. And Olivia, well, she mostly ignored me. Until the invite came. Olivia was hosting a joint celebration with Drew. Her husband had been named Regional Tech Innovator by some magazine I'd never heard of. The event would be hosted at the same restaurant as the last one. When I RSVP'd yes, no one replied. But I showed up anyway. This time, I wore a suit that fit, tailored last week, charcoal gray, with a subtle herringbone texture. No tie, just the confidence that I didn't have last time. Leonard didn't come. That was by design. He said, "Let them stare at you before they ask who you are." At the event, the same host greeted me. "Ah, Mr. Wu, welcome back." He didn't need to check the list this time. Inside, the tables had been rearranged. Family on one side, industry guests on the other. I walked in alone, heads turning briefly before returning to flutes of champagne and startup gossip. I found a small space by the window, ordered sparkling water. Daniel? I turned. It was Ethan, my old business school roommate, the one who'd joined Olivia's startup early on and later told me my textile idea was sweet, but doomed. Hey, I said. He looked me up and down. Didn't expect to see you here. Thought you were off-grid. I smiled. Still around. He laughed awkwardly. Well, if you're ever looking to get back into tech, we've got a few junior PM roles opening. I took a slow sip. I'll let you know. Across the room, Olivia was deep in conversation with two execs. She hadn't seen me yet, but she would. The room dimmed slightly. A mic turned on with a small screech. Drew stepped forward. Thanks for joining us tonight. Olivia and I have been so lucky to build something that matters to this community. We believe in innovation, in risk, and in having each other's backs. Applause. I clapped too. Then the second mic came on. Before dessert, the host said, "We have one more short announcement. A new partner has joined our city's Creative Entrepreneur Council. You may not have seen the headlines yet, but you'll be seeing him a lot more soon." I froze. That wasn't in the plan. Please welcome Daniel Wu, founder of Ordinary Matter. I didn't move. People turned, neck after neck craned. Olivia's eyes widened. So did my parents. The host gestured again. Mr. Wu. I stood. Slowly. Walked forward. Heat crawling up the back of my neck. I didn't give a speech. Just nodded. Thanks. Happy to be here. I returned to my seat. Ethan was staring at me like he'd seen a ghost. My mother looked confused. My father, oddly proud. Olivia's face was unreadable, but her wineglass trembled slightly. No one laughed this time, and I didn't need anyone to clap. The silence said enough. After the event, I didn't go home. I walked 3 blocks to my studio. It wasn't much, just a narrow loft above an old watch repair shop, but it was mine. The floorboards creaked and the heater wheezed in winter. But every fabric roll, every hand-stitched sample, every color test taped to the wall carried my fingerprint. I flipped on the lights. The space smelled faintly of lavender oil and raw cotton. There was a delivery box waiting by the door. Inside were new product samples, table linens, cushion covers, natural dye kits, all packed neatly by a small women's co-op we'd partnered with in Maine. They'd added a handwritten note in cursive, "Keep going. You're one of the good ones." I sat down in the corner chair, the one where I used to drink cheap coffee and stress about rent. This time, I just let myself breathe. The silence didn't feel like failure anymore. It felt like growth. The days after the dinner were strange. Ethan sent a LinkedIn message, "Didn't realize you were behind Ordinary Matter. Impressive stuff. Let me know if you ever want to collaborate." I didn't reply. My mother left a voicemail. "Your father and I saw the post online. Congratulations, sweetheart. We didn't know you were still doing that fabric thing. It looks very professional now. That fabric thing. I played it twice. Then I deleted it." Olivia didn't reach out at all, but I wasn't surprised. Our relationship had always been built on unspoken competition. I was the one who doodled in notebooks while she organized science fairs. She graduated early while I got detention for turning in essays late but poetic. When I launched my business, she congratulated me by sending a link to a podcast called "Why Passion Doesn't Pay the Bills," and when I closed it, she didn't say anything at all, so I stopped expecting her to care. 3 weeks later, Tamara and I met at the branding studio to finalize our summer campaign. "Do we keep the woven by hand line?" she asked, "or do we lead with community-sourced design?" I rubbed my temple. Can we do both without sounding smug? She grinned. Not if we want Gen Z to take us seriously. We laughed. Halfway through the meeting, my phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. Olivia, are you free this weekend? Coffee. Just us. I stared at it. Tamara noticed. Everything okay? Yeah, I said, flipping the phone upside down. Just family stuff. We met on Sunday. A small cafe tucked into a quiet alley. Neutral tones, potted figs, soft jazz. The kind of place Olivia would have called aesthetic without edge. She was already there when I arrived, dressed in a beige trench coat, sunglasses pushed up into her hair. She stood when she saw me, offered a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Hey. We sat. She stirred her tea even though she hadn't added sugar. So, she said, glancing at the window, I guess I owe you an apology. I didn't answer. She looked back at me. That dinner, I wasn't expecting you to walk in with an investor, or be the next artisan darling of Instagram. You kinda blindsided us. I sipped my coffee. Not really. I've been doing this for years. I meant, blindsided me. Her voice dropped slightly. I was so sure you'd given up. Because I didn't tell you every time I failed. She shook her head, exhaling hard. No. Because I wanted you to give up. There it was. I set my cup down. She kept talking. When we were kids, I was always ahead, smarter, faster. You were the dreamer. And it worked for a while. I got the grades, the jobs, the recognition. But then, when you started that shop, people loved it. People talked about you. I said nothing. She looked down. I know I pretended to be supportive, but I hated how natural it seemed for you, like you just were what I had to constantly become. My throat tightened. She continued. So when it failed, I felt relieved. That's ugly to admit, but it's the truth. We sat in silence. Outside. Someone laughed. A bike bell rang. I finally spoke. Why tell me this now? Because I'm tired of competing with a version of you that only exists in my head. And because she hesitated, your investor. Leonard. He reached out. Said there might be room for crossover with our supply chain. He wants us to talk. I blinked. He went to you? She nodded. He said you'd be the one to decide, that if I wanted a conversation, I had to come to you. I leaned back. Let it sink in. I'll think about it. I said, okay. She stood up first. Before she left, she turned and said, for what it's worth. Dan, I always envied how you didn't need a spotlight to feel real. Then she walked out. That night, I went back to the studio and ran my fingers along the edge of a folded table runner, indigo dye, hand-stitched pattern of intersecting threads. I thought about Olivia. I thought about all the years we spent carving ourselves out in contrast to each other, her achievement, my failure, her polish, my mess. And I realized maybe it was never about winning. Maybe it was about surviving without becoming invisible. I placed the table runner on the workbench, smoothed the fabric gently. Then I turned off the lights. The glow from the street was soft tonight. And for once, I didn't feel like I needed to prove anything, not even to myself. Monday started quiet, which was rare. No calls, no meetings, just me, a fresh pot of coffee, and sunlight stretching across my studio floor like it had all the time in the world. I laid out the spring samples on the center table, organic cotton napkins dyed in turmeric, eucalyptus-toned throws, hand-woven baskets that smelled faintly of straw and lemon oil. The new Ordinary Matter line was rooted in the same values I'd started with: slow craftsmanship, dignity, warmth. But now it had a direction, a team, and, most unexpectedly, a future. I checked my email. One from Tamara about a podcast invitation, one from a boutique hotel in Sedona asking about bulk orders, and one short and formal from Olivia. Subject: proposal materials for discussion. Hi, Daniel. Per our conversation, please find attached the outline and supply map for the Sustainable Textiles Partnership. Let me know if you'd like to discuss this in more detail next week. Best, Olivia. No love. No hope you're well. No emojis. But she sent it. And that was something. I opened the deck. It was clean, smart, practical. She'd highlighted crossover points where her startup's logistics software could optimize our artisan delivery cycles. There were numbers, flowcharts, even a mock interface for a joint dashboard. And somewhere near the bottom, in smaller text, optional co-launch story campaign from competition to collaboration, a family thread. I actually laughed. Not out loud. But I smiled hard enough to feel it in my ears. That night, I walked to my parents' house for dinner. It had been months since I'd gone back. Their house looked smaller than I remembered, white trim, a little chipped. Porch light flickering. My mom still had the faded live, laugh, love magnet on the mailbox. Inside, the kitchen smelled like ginger and lemongrass. Daniel, she said when she saw me. You're early. Dad turned from the stove. Apron on, wooden spoon in hand. You're just in time to taste the soup. It's not salty. Right. He offered the spoon. I sipped. It's good. He beamed. Huh. Olivia said I overseasoned it last time. I told her I'm a better cook than she is a coder. Mom swatted his arm. Don't say that. I didn't say she was bad. I said I was better. We all chuckled. The dinner table was smaller than I remembered too. I sat at the same spot I used to sit as a kid, left of my dad, across from the sliding door where condensation always gathered during winter. We ate slowly. Roast chicken, bok choy, jasmine rice. My mother kept trying to steer the conversation toward that article about your company in the paper, but she danced around the topic, unsure whether to be proud or hesitant. I had no idea people were still sewing things by hand. She said, seems very niche. It is, I replied. That's why it works. Dad nodded. Back in my day, we had a tailor down the street. Real skill. People forget that things used to be made, not just bought. Mom sipped her soup. Do you think this business will last? I didn't flinch. It already has. She looked surprised. You don't sound uncertain anymore. I'm not. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she said something I didn't expect. I used to worry about you. Dan, you were always softer than Olivia, quieter. I thought the world might eat you up. I thought so too. I said, but it turns out, quiet doesn't mean weak. She reached for my hand. No, it doesn't. 2 days later, Leonard and I sat on a rooftop cafe overlooking the city. The skyline flickered with late afternoon light, casting bronze shadows over steel. He poured sparkling water into 2 tall glasses. You read Olivia's proposal? I did, and I hesitated. She's smart. Her logistics work is airtight, and she's trying. He raised an eyebrow. Trying what? To meet me where I am. He swirled his glass. That can be dangerous. People don't always come without baggage. I know, I said, but I don't want to build something out of bitterness. If we can work together, even a little, I want to try. Leonard smiled faintly. That's your strength. You don't retaliate. You rebuild. I looked out across the rooftops. You told me once that good ideas stay safe when no one believes in them. I did. Now that people do believe, it's scarier. What if I mess it up? He leaned forward. Then you'll mess it up beautifully, and we'll start again. The reassurance settled deep. Not everything had to survive perfectly, just honestly. I met Olivia for a follow-up coffee later that week. She wore jeans and no makeup this time. I noticed, but said nothing. We sat outside, under a tree, just starting to bloom. I reviewed the joint proposal. I said, let's test a pilot 3 markets, 2 months, and no press until the data looks good. She nodded. Fair. And one more thing. No public branding around family unity. Not yet. She smiled. Yeah. That line was a little much. We both laughed. She sipped her latte, eyes thoughtful. You know, I used to think the worst thing would be failing in front of everyone, and now I asked. She paused. Now I think the worst thing is succeeding while losing the people who mattered before you won. We didn't say anything after that. Just sat there, letting the wind move through the branches above. Maybe we'd never be the kind of siblings who finished each other's sentences or called just to chat. But maybe we could be something else. Maybe we could finally stop measuring our lives in comparisons and just build. The summer line launched quietly. No massive press tour, no influencer campaign, just the products, the people behind them, and the simple promise, ordinary things, made with care. Orders came in faster than expected. Hotels, stylists, everyday families. Even a few artists offered to collaborate on custom collections. I kept my routines. Morning walks, evening folds, quiet weekends. I still answered emails myself. Still wrapped some packages with handwritten notes. Still visited makers in person. Success didn't change the work. It just gave it more room to breathe. A month into the pilot with Olivia's team, I drove out to visit one of our regional fulfillment hubs, a modest warehouse tucked behind a farmer's market in the hills outside Santa Rosa. We'd set up the partnership so that Olivia's software could optimize the routes for deliveries, especially for rural artisan cooperatives who weren't used to tech logistics. The idea was to keep our shipping efficient without sacrificing our values. No mass-produced materials, no rushed timelines. The drive was long, but I didn't mind. Windows down, sunlight on my arm. The winding roads felt like breathing room. I stopped at a roadside fruit stand and picked up fresh strawberries for the team. When I arrived, the staff were mid-sorting. Fabric swatches in every color imaginable were being packed into branded boxes olive green. Soft white ink that simply read, Ordinary Matter. Time woven in. Clara, the lead coordinator, came over in gloves and a smudge of red clay on her cheek. Dan didn't expect you in person. I like surprises, I said, handing her the strawberries. She grinned. Bribery accepted. She walked me through the new system scanning stations, packaging automation for the outer wraps, even a temperature-controlled corner for delicate materials. And this, she said, pointing to a screen, is the Olivia software. That's what everyone called it now. It mapped route efficiency in real time, integrating handmade item availability with local weather reports and traffic data. Honestly, Clara added, we were skeptical, but it's cut delivery times by a third. Even the artists are starting to trust it. I smiled. Good to hear. Outside, 2 young employees were applying logo stamps to linen parcels. One of them looked up and asked, Are you the guy who started all this? I hesitated. Clara answered for me. He is. That's Daniel. The employee nodded. Cool. My mom got one of your napkin sets and said it reminded her of when her grandmother used to sew. That stayed with me the whole drive back. Later that week, Olivia and I met at Leonard's office for a quarterly check-in. Tamara was there, along with Marcus and Jana. First things first, Tamara said. The pilot worked. Engagement's up 38% across all regions. Customer retention has doubled in test zones using the integrated system, Jana added. And we've received 3 acquisition inquiries, none of which were entertaining, but still worth noting. Leonard looked to me. How are you feeling? I paused, like I'm finally seeing the shape of something I've been building in the dark. Tamara smiled. That's the line we should use for fall. We laughed, but something in the room shifted. It felt less like I was sitting with investors and more like I was sitting with builders. That night, Olivia texted me. Olivia dinner. Just you and me. No pitch decks, I promise. I said yes. We met at a Korean BBQ spot neither of us had been to in years. The place was still loud and chaotic, full of sizzling plates and families talking over each other. We got a small corner table. The server brought banchan dishes, pickled radish, fish cake, spicy cucumbers, and a portable grill. I used to hate how you never rushed, Olivia said as she unwrapped the utensils. You'd take forever to make one decision, and it drove me crazy. I laughed. That's because I was terrified of making the wrong one. I thought you were just trying to annoy me. We grilled short ribs in silence for a while. Then she said, I've been thinking about what you said, about not building from bitterness. I looked up. I've done a lot of things just to win, just to stay on top. And it's exhausting. Then stop, I said. She smiled softly. I'm trying. There was a pause. Not awkward, just honest. Then she asked something I didn't expect. Do you remember when Mom got sick that year you started college? Yeah. You had just taken that internship in DC. I was scared to come home, she admitted. I thought if I stepped away, even for a second, someone would replace me. That's why I pushed so hard. Dan, not because I didn't believe in you, but because I didn't believe I could matter without being impressive. I let that sink in. Then I said, You've always mattered. You just forgot you were allowed to rest. She blinked fast, like she was keeping tears from forming. We didn't hug. We didn't need to. Sometimes healing isn't loud. It's two people grilling meat and finally hearing each other. The next morning, I got an email from an old contact at a national lifestyle magazine. Subject cover, feature inquiry founders who changed the rules. They wanted me and Olivia to appear together, two siblings who took different paths but found a way to build something sustainable, both literally and metaphorically. I forwarded it to her. Me, thoughts, Olivia. Let's do it. But only if they let us wear linen and eat BBQ on the shoot. I laughed, typing back, deal. The day of the shoot. The stylist tried to put me in something crisp and generic. I insisted on my indigo-dyed work shirt and boots. Olivia wore a soft wool blazer over one of our hand-stitched scarves. We didn't pose like tech stars or fashion icons. We sat on floor pillows, surrounded by bolts of fabric, eating from mismatched dishes that had been brought from my studio kitchen. The photographer whispered to his assistant, This feels real. That's because it was that evening. As the sun dipped low, Leonard sent a final message. Leonard, you've built something rare. Don't forget why you started. The world will try to pull you away from it. I typed back, I won't. Then I paused. Thank you for seeing me when no one else did. He replied almost instantly, That's all I ever look for. Sometimes, when the studio gets quiet and the light turns that soft amber tone, I sit by the window and trace back every step, the empty dinner seat, the locked door, the silence, the slow return, the offer, the risk, the rebuild. And I realize that my story didn't start when they began clapping. It started the moment I kept going, even when no one was watching. Fall arrived gently that year, as if it didn't want to startle anything in bloom. Leaves turned gold in slow motion. The city wore the season like a soft sweater. Ordinary Matters Fall campaign launched with a quiet newsletter and a series of photos taken not in a studio, but in the homes of our artisans, mothers sewing by oil lamp in Vermont. a grandfather weaving on his front porch in Tennessee, a teenage girl dyeing cotton with marigold petals in an open-air shed in Oaxaca. No slogans, no corporate flair, just real names, real hands. The responses flooded in. It reminded me of my grandmother. I didn't know products like this still existed. I cried. I don't know why. But thank you. I read every message, every single one, even though we were scaling. I hadn't let go of the work. I still wrote the product blurbs myself. I still wrapped a few boxes every Friday. Leonard called me once during a stormy evening, wind howling through my studio windows. "Your problem," he said dryly, "is you haven't figured out whether you're a founder or a craftsman?" I laughed. "Can I be both?" "You can," he said, "but you'll have to fight for it." He wasn't wrong. With growth came pressure. From partners. From media. From within. Jana wanted us to scale internationally by spring. Tamara floated a celebrity collaboration. Marcus asked about licensing. And Olivia, though supportive, began speaking more in numbers than in feelings. "We can 10x this with a hybrid model," she said one afternoon, standing in front of a slide deck titled Strategic Diversification Through Scalable Customization. I stared at it and felt my stomach twist. "That's not who we are," I told her. She closed the laptop gently. "But it's what we could be." The room fell silent. "You're not wrong," I finally said. "But if we're going to grow, I need to be able to look our makers in the eye and tell them we didn't sell their work to save our margins." She nodded. "Okay. We'll go slower." That moment felt like a bigger win than any revenue milestone. Later that week, I flew to North Carolina to visit a group of textile artists we'd been working with since the beginning. Helen, the eldest of the group, met me at the porch with sunflowers in her apron pocket. "You're that city boy who liked our ugly quilts," she teased, handing me a glass of lemonade. "I called them rustic," I said, grinning. Her workshop was warm with the scent of cedar and thread. Pinned to the wall was a newspaper clipping of our first article, the one no one in my family had ever mentioned. "You still like what you're doing?" she asked as she pieced two patches together. "I love it," I said. Even with the meetings and cameras and fancy contracts, I paused. "I love the parts that touch people. I'm learning to carry the rest." She smiled. "Then you'll be fine." That evening, we sat on the porch with the others. They showed me new patterns, debated stitching techniques, gossiped about a nearby town's harvest festival. I didn't speak much. I just listened. There was a kind of holiness in being surrounded by people who made things with their hands, people who didn't need applause to know something was good. When I returned, Tamara called me in a quiet voice. "We've been shortlisted for the Artisan Commerce Award," she said. "National press. Big platform. Black tie ceremony." I let out a breath. "Wow. Okay. And they want you to give a speech." I froze. "I'm not a speaker." "Exactly," she said. "That's why it'll matter." The weeks leading up to the event moved fast. A stylist came to my studio with racks of muted suits and linen blends. I picked the one that looked the least like it was trying. Olivia helped me write bullet points. "Just talk about why you started." "People forget the why," Leonard said. "Keep it under 3 minutes. Leave them with silence, not clapping." The night of the ceremony, I stood backstage and watched award winners adjust their tuxedos and rehearse applause lines. When my name was called, I stepped into the light and felt a stillness wrap around me. No teleprompter, no slides, just a microphone and a ballroom of strangers. I looked down at my hands. Then I spoke. "My name is Daniel Wu. I started a business that failed. Then I started it again." A few people chuckled. "I make things. Or rather, I try to make space for people who do. The kind of people who don't have PR teams or trending hashtags. Just patience, and fabric, and memory. I paused. We don't want to sell a lifestyle. We want to remind people that they already have one, that their tables, their routines, their homes can be sacred. Silence. Then a quiet wave of applause, not thunderous, but warm, real. I stepped off the stage without waiting for anyone to grab my hand. Backstage. Olivia hugged me for the first time in years. I almost cried. She said, but I didn't want to mess up my eyeliner. I laughed. You're still the most polished one here. She stepped back and looked at me. You know, you don't need us anymore. I tilted my head. What do you mean all of this? The recognition, the deals, the audience? It's yours now. You've built it. I nodded slowly. Maybe, but I didn't get here alone. She smiled. Still, it's different when the room listens because they believe in you, not because someone whispered your name. I didn't say anything, but she was right. For the first time, it wasn't Leonard or Tamara or the crowd lifting me up. It was me, standing still, without flinching. That night, I went home alone. No after party, no interviews, just me, a tea kettle, and a pile of unwashed linen scraps I hadn't had time to sort. I turned on an old playlist and folded each piece by hand. The moonlight hit my desk just right. Everything felt quiet again, but not empty. Full. The magazine came out a week later. I walked past it by accident, stacked on a wire rack inside a bookstore near my studio. For a second, I didn't recognize myself on the cover. There we were, me and Olivia, both seated cross-legged on a hand-woven rug. She's laughing, eyes closed mid-laugh. I'm looking at the camera with a half smile, hands resting on my knees. The backdrop is just fabric, gently hanging behind us, nothing loud or staged. The headline read, "Threads of Grace." How two siblings stitched a new kind of legacy. I bought 5 copies. I didn't even know who I was going to give them to when I brought one to my parents' house. I left it on the kitchen counter without saying anything. An hour later, my mom found it. "Oh," she said, picking it up with her glasses halfway down her nose. "You're on the cover?" I nodded. My dad walked over. "Let me see." He turned the pages slowly, stopping at the spread where Olivia and I are pictured standing back to back, arms loosely crossed. "You both look comfortable," he said, and I could tell it was the only word he trusted himself to say. My mom pressed her fingers gently to the corner of the page. "I used to wonder what you'd become. Now I wonder how I didn't see it happening." She didn't say it to be dramatic. She said it like someone remembering a dream they didn't know they had. Over the following weeks, things continued to move, though not always in straight lines. The business grew, but not exponentially. Orders came in, then slowed. One of our larger suppliers pulled out, citing costs. A viral post helped, then fizzled. Olivia's team rolled out a new system update that briefly crashed our internal tracking, and I forgot again to eat lunch for 2 days straight. But somehow, I wasn't overwhelmed, because the chaos now had purpose. We weren't scrambling. We were adjusting. One morning, I visited a customer who'd ordered nearly every product from our summer collection. Her name was Ray. She was a painter living alone in a narrow house filled with canvas and potted succulents. She greeted me barefoot at the door. "I didn't think you'd come yourself." "I needed the walk," I said. She led me to her kitchen, where one of our indigo-dyed runners lay across a small oak table. Atop it sat chipped mugs, a tiny brass lamp, and an open sketchbook. "I use your linens in every still life I paint," she said. "Not because they match, but because they feel alive." That word alive stayed with me the whole day. That evening, I sat alone at my studio, Turning off the lights one by one, I pulled down the last of our winter sample swatches and placed them in a flat box for storage. I thought of the first night I opened this space. The cold, the fear, the silence. I had no one then, just the echo of my own breath and a dream that didn't know where to go. Now, even in the quiet, I didn't feel alone, because the dream wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to the people who stitched it, sold it, shared it. It belonged to my sister, who finally looked me in the eye without needing to win. It belonged to my parents, who didn't understand until they did. It belonged to Leonard, who had disappeared into another round of global deals but still emailed me once a month with 3 words: keep making good. One night, Olivia came over with 2 tubs of Thai takeout. No reason, she said, setting the food down like it was an apology and a celebration at once. We ate on the floor, backs against the wall, paper napkins in our laps. You remember that time I accused you of being too sentimental to lead a business, she asked, picking at her noodles. Which time, I said. She snorted. The worst part is I believed it. I thought being cold was a kind of strength. I shrugged. I thought being silent was a kind of strength, so I guess we both missed the point. We ate in silence for a while. Then she said, I'm glad it was you. I'm glad you're the one who built this. If it had been me, it would have been efficient, but it wouldn't have meant anything. I looked at her, surprised. You don't mean that, I said. I do. I'm good at systems, but you gave it a soul. It wasn't a compliment. It was a passing of something unspoken. For the first time, I didn't feel smaller beside her, just equal. Weeks later, as I walked past the old storefront where my first shop once stood, I paused. It had been renovated into a Pilates studio. Pale wood, glass doors, clean lines. Nothing of me remained. But I didn't feel sad. I stood outside for a few minutes, watching a woman inside roll up her yoga mat. Then I left. Not everything sacred needs to be preserved. Sometimes, it just needs to be remembered. On the final day of the year, I returned to the place where I'd first met Leonard, the bookstore cafe. Same corner table, same rain tapping on the windows. I ordered the same drink, black tea with honey. No one recognized me. No one should have. I pulled out a notebook and wrote 3 lines. Still small, still quiet, still building. And then I closed it. I didn't post it. Didn't need anyone to like it. The work wasn't about being seen anymore. It was about staying honest, especially when no one's looking. That night, as fireworks lit the distant skyline, I stood on my studio rooftop with a mug in my hands and fabric scraps in my coat pocket. I didn't make a resolution. I just whispered thank you to no one in particular. To failure, to rejection, to patience, to the long, ugly climb back. And when the sky turned silent again, I smiled. Not because everything was perfect, but because I finally knew who I was, even in the dark.